It is my pleasure to be the facilitator of our very last interview for our Catalyst series. So I'd just like to take a moment to invite Sierra up on stage. Can we give her a warm welcome, guys? Take a seat. All right, so this is Sierra. Probably no one here knows her. If someone does, I'd be kind of excited. But Sierra is someone that I know from my other past life in the dance world, as well as through mutual friends. So we've invited her here today to hear a little bit about her life, which is super exciting. So Sierra, can you tell us a little bit about who you are for these guys, maybe what you studied and what you're currently up to at the moment?
Hi everyone, I'm Sierra. I grew up in Auckland, West Auckland actually, so, what am I? Yeah, I studied contemporary dance, so same as me, different universities, but same degree. So I did a degree in performing arts essentially. So that was a few years ago now, and then I've been freelancing as a professional dancer since then, and I now freelance, so that means I contract out to companies, dance companies. They can employ me for a show, and then I do that. I also work for my husband, Jared. He's a creative as well, so he has a skate company that he makes skateboards for, and as an artist, does art installations, so I work for him. And I work at Crave Cafe. I don't know if you guys know Crave. I'm part of the crew there, and I run a little plant business. So kind of a lot of things. It's hard to kind of go, what do you do? But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of Crave Cafe, can we speak about that first? So can you tell us what is Crave Cafe and what makes it a little bit different?
Yeah, so Crave Cafe is essentially owned by a collective, and we're just a small collective of people. It actually started 10 years ago by just a group of people who wanted to make Morningside a better place to live, and so they were like, what can we do? Let's start up a little cafe. And everyone's like, that's never going to work. And I don't know if you've been to Crave now, it's like insane.
You can never get a seat there. Like, it's pumping all the time.
About 800 coffees on a Saturday is like your normal thing. So it's kind of crazy that this little seed that was planted in people to just want to give back to the community. So it's a non-for-profit. So any profits that Crave make go into the neighbourhood. We run street parties, so we close down the street, free food, free everything for the neighbourhood, and then we run soup nights, and this is all out of Crave. So we meet there on a Sunday night, kind of for church, but it's more just a collective and a place for people of faith and non-faith to call home. So yeah,
that is very cool, guys. Yeah, let's applaud that. That's awesome. All right, so you also talked about you studied dance, and you've danced for a couple of really well-known dance companies in New Zealand in the past, and now you're doing your own thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and that experience?
Yeah, so coming out of dance school, I was kind of told, oh, you'll be a full-time professional dancer, and that's kind of what I thought I wanted to do. So I danced for a few of the kind of top New Zealand companies, and I did a lot of touring, and I did that, and then I got quite sick kind of a few years into that, and had to take a step back because of my health, and it was a really interesting journey to kind of be going full bore and then just stop, and actually to walk around the block was a really hard thing, and coming out of that, I guess I was like, actually, I want to try this again, because that's what I'm meant to do, is be a full-time dancer. So I did it, and I got myself back to the liver fitness, and kind of got part of a company and on a tour again. And through that journey, it was really interesting. I was on tour away from my family, friends, my husband, and I was just like, actually, I don't need to be putting myself through this. It was like really taking a toll on me emotionally, mentally, physically, and I was like, actually, I'm more than this in terms of as a creative, as an artist. I had I guess until then didn't really realise I had my own voice, and I was just kind of doing what other people, thought I should do, and what I guess I had that skill level to do. So we're actually going, actually I want to create, I want to make the world a better place through art, and sometimes that's hard to do if you're just pursuing that, and that works for some people, and I just realised the journey of that, I realised that wasn't actually for me and my heart, and it was a really beautiful journey, because I think if I didn't do that, if I didn't get to that point, I wouldn't have recognised that. Yeah.
Wow, that is incredible, hey? So cool. So now, you also at the moment, you spoke about you freelance at the moment, and I know you have this thing going on called the Creative Human Project. So could you share a little bit about how that started, and what's your vision, like what's your dream behind that?
Yeah, so the Creative Human Project is just something I guess it birthed from another little project I started called the Do a Little Dance Project. That was just a random name. I was like, I'm going to do a little dance every day for a year. And that's just a way that can challenge me, just my personal journey with creating. So some days were really bad. It was like, it's 11 o'clock at night and I haven't done a thing today. And so pose it in the stairwell or something, and take a photo and do that. Some days are really beautiful and I'd create with some friends, and I did that, and it was just to give myself that practice. And so kind of a year or so later, I was like, the learnings that I got from that was actually the confidence that gave me in who I was as an artist or as a creative was really valuable, and something that I haven't learned in any other kind of workshop or skill or class. And so I was like, actually, I feel so empowered when I make something like that. And through the dance company journey, that's not often a feeling you feel. And so I was like, how can I let other people feel this and experience this joy and confidence that I get? And so I was like, actually, let's just start this Creative Human Project. Everyone's a creative human, no matter what you do. You can cook, I can't draw, but I'm creative. So, it's not just what is in front of you, there's everything. And so I was like, let's start this. So essentially it's what I do is I go around and collaborate with other artists, and we just go out, find some cool architecture, cool nature, and we compose an image with a background and the human body. And then make something. Often they're like, I feel crap, or I don't look good. And I'm like, hang on, we can do this. And then they see it and they're like, oh my gosh, is that me? And there's something really beautiful about an image, especially in our world today where images are very always there. But how can we make a meaningful one? And I just wanted to collate stories. So how do you feel as a creative or an artist or as a human? So I've just started kind of doing that, putting it on my Instagram as a platform, my hope will be that will be a community of people that can come together and just, no matter what experience they've had as an artist, good, bad, whatever, they can all contribute to a community.
That's so great. I love that it's just about, giving each person a voice to share their experience, and having that unified community. It's so beautiful. And I'll just do a plug for you even. If you're interested to see what Sarah's up to, you can just search the Creative Human Project on Instagram. Yeah. And the feed will come up.
Or my name.
Or your name. And you can have a look and you can be part of that community. And I know Sarah's always keen to meet up with people and to...
if you want to shoot, just let me know and we can just go for a little adventure somewhere.
Yeah, so everyone can be part of this community. All right, my next question, I've forgotten, so I'll check my notes. That's right. So we're in this series at the moment about being a catalyst. And I mean, would you guys agree, just from hearing what Sarah's kind of done with her life and her creativity, she's a catalyst. In her field, So are there times, though, that you have felt like giving up or like you're failing? And I guess in those times, what is it that gives you the drive and fuels you to actually keep going?
Yeah, definitely there's quite often been a sense of I failed, and that's, it's a feeling that we always quite often feel, which is quite hard. But I think the giving up one's a hard one, because I think deep down, like, everything I do, I think I dream is like, it's just visual and creative, and it's, I don't know, it's just, I guess I always feel like there's an aspect of that, so I never want to give that up. And when I do, if I feel like I haven't danced for a while, or I haven't, I don't know, like been in nature or done something creative, that's often when I feel like I'm failing and not doing well. So I think the more that I just be around people who support me and encourage me is a really cool way to kind of keep the tanks full. Catching up with Bree the other week, it's like, oh yeah, it was just like really awesome to have a conversation, and even a small conversation can make a huge difference in how you feel about what you're doing. And yeah, the days that I'm like just delivering coffees every day, like I do that too. And I think it's really important to do that so you recognize, the value of what you do and what you love.
I love that. Just, and I'm sure it's the same for all of us if we're feeling down or we're not feeling driven, but actually getting around the people that love you and doing the things that you love is something that's so inspiring and motivational. My last question for you today is what kind of legacy are you wanting to leave with your creative projects and with your life?
Yeah, big question. I don't think I've ever thought about that before. I guess, I don't know, like, it's really important to belong and feel like you're supported. And I think, you guys exemplify that here in this community. We have our community in Crave. There's all these communities, and I think it's really important to be a part of something. So I guess, like, what I want and my hopes and dreams for especially the Creative Human Project, and bigger than that, is that kind of just instigates people creating community, and I don't know, we just need that kind of connection, and I think it's really important to just share what you love and do what you love.
That is awesome. Guys, can we please give Sierra one more round of applause? Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating. On all of us, fascinating in the things we do, and the things we can learn from each other, and just thanks for coming in today and sharing your story. I've been to Crave heaps. I love Crave Cafe, as well as Kind. So it's an awesome, I think it's a vegan restaurant. They do serve meat there as well, but it's really good. So encourage you guys to go to Morningside. It's mainly vegan, right? Am I right?
Yeah, it's 70% plant-based, but you can get bacon on the side.
You see? All right. So I wasn't that wrong. So we've been journeying through this whole story of Nehemiah, and I hope in some way over these past 6, and today is the 7th week, that in some way you've learned something about leadership, about who God is. And today, if it's your first time, I'm going to quickly summarize this whole story about Nehemiah. And just briefly, Nehemiah is this guy that we read about in the Old Testament of the Bible, which is the first part of the Bible. And Nehemiah is just this guy who saw a need in a community. He saw that, hey, there's this wall that was broken down in Jerusalem, and he actually took ownership and responsibility, and he said, hey, I'm going to do something about it. And at that time, he was actually serving as a cupbearer for a king, and it was actually risking his life to go up to the king and say, hey, can I actually have some time off, and can I actually go and serve my people, because he was a Jew as well. And the king actually offered him that time off, and actually gave him some resources as well, and security. And he journeyed, and sort of as we've been discovered, he journeyed like, I think it was 1,200 kilometers on a donkey all the way to Jerusalem to actually restore the walls of Jerusalem. They had been broken down by the Babylonian Empire. And he rocks up there, and he takes some time to actually just investigate. And we learned that he sat with it. He prayed about it. He asked God sort of, hey, how can I make a difference here? And then he rallies the team together. we see that Nehemiah is a phenomenal leader where he sees that, hey, I can't do everything by myself. And he rallies a whole team together, and they start rebuilding this wall. And through this story, through these weeks, we've seen how much opposition he had. Whenever you have a good idea, then everybody says, oh, no, that will never actually happen. And I loved hearing that about Crave Cafe. No, that's not going to work. And Nehemiah actually makes it work. He gets, over and over again, he gets told that, hey, you guys aren't doing a good job. And we've learned that he said, no, we're actually doing a good job, and we're going to continue doing what we're doing and rebuilding these walls. And we found out that Nehemiah actually built the walls with his whole team in how many days? 52 days, which is a phenomenal story. It's a miracle that he can actually, rally a team together and build the walls all around Jerusalem in 52 days. And then people were understanding and seeing, and even his enemies were realizing that, hey, this wall over here was actually a God thing, that this wall and the whole vision behind it was a God vision, that it was God who was using Nehemiah as a catalyst. And all the people of Jerusalem knew that, hey, this wall was actually a sign and a symbol that God was with them. This is a sign and a symbol that God is doing something great through them. And the story that we haven't sort of touched on is after the wall's built. And after the wall's built, all the people of Jerusalem sort of come back to Jerusalem and start living there. And all the exiles who were sort of all separated during the Babylonian time, all come back to Jerusalem. And Nehemiah actually takes a census of all the people. He positions some security on the gates. He positions some musicians on the gate. I don't know why the musicians are there. But all these people start coming back. And Nehemiah, a phenomenal catalyst and a leader, starts helping the community gain sort of live together again and just peace. And then there's this whole process where they get this restoration where they start coming back to God. They had all sort of moved away from God and separated and done their own things, and they all start coming back to Jerusalem and start leaning more into God. And there's a guy called Ezra, and if you read in the Bible, that's just the book right before Nehemiah. Scholars think that Ezra and Nehemiah is actually just one book. And Ezra is one of the priests who starts reading the law of Moses and sort of just trying to challenge the community. Hey, just come back to God. Just live the way God is asking all of us to live. And all these people start doing this. And honestly, it's an amazing story because from one guy, Nehemiah, who lived so far away, he just heard about a problem. And then he decided, hey, I need to do something about it, to a whole community being transformed. And a whole community then actually sharing their resources so the whole community can function together. But the interesting part about the whole story of Nehemiah and the last few chapters in the book is that Nehemiah becomes the governor. So he becomes almost like the ruler of Jerusalem. And at that time, then, I think he spent about 12 years in Jerusalem. He realizes that, hey, he better get back to being the cupbearer for the king, because the king said he could just go away for a time. So he heads back to, I think it was to Susa in Persia. And when he's leaving Jerusalem in such an awesome space where the community's thriving, people are fully devoted into God. And they also have this dedication of the wall just before he leaves, where if you read about it, it's phenomenal because it's like surround sound where he positions bands and like, I don't know how many instruments at all the different corners of the walls, and where they just celebrate that this community's come back together. God is doing something awesome here. And Nehemiah leaves then, he goes and he serves the king again. But at some point he asks the king and he says, hey, can I go back to Jerusalem? And we're not exactly sure how long that actually took. But then we find in the last chapter that Nehemiah comes back to the wall, to Jerusalem. And can you imagine the first time when he left Susa, when he was leaving and he was like there isn't any wall, right? The walls were all broken down. Can you imagine what was going through his mind, his fears that he's had? But now, on his return now, walking back to Jerusalem and just being like, man, this is awesome. Like, I can't believe that God has restored Jerusalem, the people, the community, everything's thriving. And he arrives back in Jerusalem, and guess what? Guess what he finds? People have all just abandoned God. People have forgotten who God was. People have forgotten about the wall. He finds out that people are just disobeying everything that they had put into place. And he's just so angry. He's got this, like, if you read about it, it's pretty brutal, where Nehemiah has this, like, anger in him. And he actually just calls out so many people. At one stage, I think he's pulling someone's hair, all right, about what has happened. And I read this story, and it's such an amazing story, Nehemiah, because it's not a story where there's a good ending, that there's a happy ending at the end, and everyone lived happily, together after that. No, actually, there's this time where everyone's just apart, and they're lying, they're cheating, they're stealing from the church. There's crazy stuff happening there. But I love that part about it, because the one thing I just think is, and I wrote it down here, that how did they miss the wall? This whole community was living inside these walls. And this wall, all of them knew, was the biggest representation of God's presence with them, that God was for them, that God had helped them rebuild these walls. How did they miss that? How did they miss that everything that these walls were about was that God was actually having their hand on the nation of Israel? But they missed that. And I think we can relate with that, because I think if you're sitting in church today, and if we've gone through 6 weeks of Nehemiah and leadership and what it means, I think it's very easily for us to actually miss that God is actually around and He's actually present in our lives. And even though maybe He's done some amazing stuff in the past, I think it's easy for us to miss that God is still present, and that He's still in this space, and that He still wants to do things through us. And today I just wanted to end the series with something that honestly has helped me with my leadership, and also my understanding of what leadership is and what actually it means to actually try to be a life-giving leader. And I hope as I share this passage that Jesus speaks about, that all of us will discover that, hey, if you're sitting here today and you still don't realize that God is for you, that you'll understand that, hey, God is for you and He wants to use you as a catalyst. So the story goes where Jesus, this story is found in John 15, and Jesus actually gets His best leaders, all right? He decides, hey, He's going to replace Himself, and at this stage, Jesus is sort of training up a crew. He's got 12 guys who are following Him around. He called them the disciples, and He's got them down, and He's busy teaching them all about leadership and just modeling what it means to actually make a difference in this world. And at this stage, Jesus shares this metaphor, or this teaching about this vine. And this is what He says. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. He says, hey, His Father is the gardener and Jesus is the vine, all right? And then He says this. He says, you are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. And this is often where we could read past a passage in Scripture and actually think that it doesn't actually have some significance. But I want to share with you today that I think this is such a big game changer. Jesus, picture this. He's with His disciples, the guys that He's going to empower, and say, hey, I want you guys to lead. I want you guys to go and lead in this world and make a difference like you've never made a difference before. And while He's doing this and He's sharing about this vine, He says, hey, you are already clean. because of the word I've spoken to you. And if we ask the question like, hey, if he's saying you are already clean, then what did he speak to them earlier on? What did Jesus say to the disciples earlier on? So we turn back a few pages and we go to John chapter 13, and we see Jesus, it's nighttime and he's got his disciples around him again. And he does something extraordinary here. He does something that, if we're thinking of leadership and what servant leadership is all about, this is someone who models something so significant to us. And this is what he does. He has his disciples together. They're all sharing a meal. And this is what it says. It says, after that he poured water into a basin and he began to wash his disciples' feet. Now I want you to picture this. These guys weren't the best of the best, okay? These disciples were just ordinary people that he had chosen to follow him. And on this evening, Jesus, who is actually like all of them are thinking, he is the Messiah, he's the king, he's like the leader above all leaders. This leader decides, hey, I want to actually wash their feet. So he grabs a basin and he starts washing the disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Then it goes on and it says, and he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Simon Peter, just one of the disciples, he says, like, Jesus, are you going to wash my feet? All right. And this is Jesus' response. He says, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. And I love Peter's response. This is Peter's response. He just says, no. All right? No. Like, no, you're the leader, all right? You can't serve and wash my feet. And he says, no. And he says, you shall never wash my feet. Like, I think that's how some of us are. Like, we think like, no, like God actually, no, you can't wash my feet. Like, I'll wash my feet. I'll clean myself up first, all right? But you can't do that. We think that really, like our concept of God, like God is so big, he's so extraordinary. And like, why would we allow him to serve us, to wash our feet? Peter says, no, you shall never wash my feet. Like, no, I'll read some self-help books. I'll do some stuff that's going to help me perform better and make sure that I can clean myself up in a way that's suitable. But no, God, I don't want you to wash my feet. And Jesus answers and he says, well, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Unless I wash you, you have no part with me. And I love Peter's response now because he all of a sudden says this. Then Lord Simon Peter replied, he said, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Like Peter just decides, hey, okay, if I have no part with you, then like just wash all of me, just soak me, just immerse me with who you are, just clean me up. And Jesus responds and he says, those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are what? You are clean, all right? Though not every one of you. And I love what Jesus is saying here. And if you're not following, I'm going to try and bring it home, all right? Jesus is saying here to Peter, one of the disciples, he's saying, hey, the only way that you can have relationship with me is if I actually serve you. The only way that you can actually have connection with me is if I wash you, if I clean you. And Peter, what I'm trying to tell you is that you are clean now because of what I have done for you. And there is nothing you can do to clean yourself up to have relationship with me. I love this. This is a game changer for me when it comes to who Jesus is and what he wants to do in our lives. And he said, though not every one of you, because we know that there was a disciple there who was going to betray Jesus. So then we move forward again to John chapter 15, where Jesus says, hey, he's speaking about this vine, and he says, hey, you are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. What Jesus is saying here, he's saying, hey, I want you to know where you are. I want you to know where you are in life. Because if you're missing it, I want you to know that you are already clean. It's as if Jesus was going to the mall, and you know where you have the location map, and you have the red dot, and the red dot says what? you're here, right? This is what Jesus was saying. I just want you to know you are here. You are already clean, all right? Not because of anything that you can do, but because what I have done for you. I'm cleaning you up, Peter. I'm cleaning you up. And then he says, hey, because of where you are, now I want you to listen up to this. He says, remain in me. Remain in me. Abide in me. Stay here. Stay here. Don't leave. Stay here. Stay where I'm telling you you are, that you're clean. Stay here. He says, remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I love what Jesus is doing here. He's saying, hey, you're already clean, and now I want you to stay here. I want you to lead from this position. I don't want you to lead from another position, or I don't want you to start from another starting point. Know that you are clean because of what I am doing for you. He's calling his disciples to lead in this way. He says, remain in me. And the thing about remaining in me is that you can't remain in a place that you don't reside in, right? I can't say I'm living in South Africa if I'm in Takapuna, right? You can't do that. Jesus is challenging his disciples. He says, hey, remain here, abide here. And he says, no branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. I mean, we're speaking about leadership these whole 6 weeks, and the only way that we can actually be a catalyst or actually really make a difference is if we remain in Jesus. That's the way we're really going to bear fruit. And he goes on then, and he says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me, just in case we forgot, right? I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do what? Nothing. I love this. Because if we understood this without you are already clean, this doesn't really make sense. But because we understand it from God's position, and now he says, hey, apart from me, you can do nothing. In other words, if you want to lead well, if you want to be a catalyst, I want you to lean in to who I am. I want you to be close. I want you to be in camp. You may move away from me, and then you lead from an empty space, but hey, I need you to come back. If you want to really be a catalyst, someone who makes a difference, come back. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Do any of you have fish at home? A fish tank? Yeah? Mark does. Anyone else? Anyone had fish growing up? Yeah? I loved fish, and as I grew up, as a kid, I had a few fish tanks. And I got some funny stories, or maybe they're not so funny, I don't know. But yeah, one of them is one night I was sleeping in my room, and I woke up, heard this glass break. And when you hear that in South Africa, instantly you think what? Yeah, someone's broken in. But I switched on the light, and it wasn't. It was my fish tank. It had broken underneath, and all the water was gushing out like the Niagara Falls. So it was 4 o'clock in the morning. So pretty much all that I did was I grabbed a bowl from the kitchen, I grabbed the fish, I picked them up off my carpet, threw them in the bowl, and put the heater in the bowl, put the bubbles in the bowl, and I put some water in, and then I went back to bed. And in the morning, I went back to bed, woke up in the morning. When I woke up, I heard this weird sound. It was like this bubbling sound. And I didn't know what exactly it was. And I went into the kitchen, and I realized that I had forgotten to actually turn my heater down. And because I had put the fish in a smaller bowl, all my fish were cooked up, all right? So that's one crazy story I had with one of my fish tanks. Another one is, if you have a fish tank, you know what a mission it is to keep clean, right? It's such a pain. Like, you can buy everything you want, you can buy the greatest filter, but you always have to take time to make sure you can clean it. And I'd been procrastinating this for probably about 7 months, 8 months, even longer. It It was all green. You couldn't really see the fish. And one Sunday, I decided, okay, today is the day I'm actually going to clean the whole tank. And so I spent most of the day just cleaning the whole tank. It was looking great. And then I decided, I'm actually going to go and buy some more fish. I bought some new plants for the tank, and I loved it, like just setting it all up. And then everything was done. I had done everything, and then all I had to do was squirt one little drop of the blue ink, the alkaline, just to neutralize the water in the tank. And I held it over the tank like this, and it didn't come out. So I used both hands, and I squeezed like this, and the lid popped out, and all of this blue ink just ran into my tank. So it stained everything, and yeah, I didn't clean it up for probably the next 7 months. It's pretty cool, funky lights. But one thing I've realized about a fish tank is that, I love just sitting and watching the fish at night or switching the light on and seeing their detail and stuff. But those fish are totally dependent upon me for survival, all right? Totally. And I felt, man, that actually feels crazy, that there's nothing those fish can actually do to survive without me. I mean, I'm the one who feeds them, if I remember. I'm the one who cleans their tank. I'm the one who makes sure the heater's actually right or not right. I'm the one who makes sure the filter's working. I'm the one who makes sure there's water in the tank. Those fish are totally dependent upon me for survival. There's absolutely nothing they can do. They can swim up and down. They can swim the fastest. They can do backflips in the tank. They can sing songs, whatever. But there is nothing they can do for their own survival. And I realized that's exactly how it is when Jesus is saying here that you can do nothing from me. We are totally dependent upon God for survival. There is nothing we can do. There's no thing that we can try and do more of or compete more so that we can better ourselves, that Jesus will just like us more. No, he does. He cares about us. He wants us in relationship with him. You can do nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. I was chatting to some of the guys yesterday, and we were chatting about how God is. And often I pictured God, and maybe some of you have this picture as well, that God's almost like the dentist, that when you're going to the dentist, the day before or that morning before, you brush your teeth like you've never brushed them before, right? You pull the floss out, you're making sure that your teeth are spotless, and then you go to the dentist, right? But God isn't like a dentist. There isn't something we got to clean up first, because that is his job. He initiates that first step of, hey, you are already clean. Just come as you are and just abide you. And then Jesus goes on and he says, if you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. And I love this, because there's something I think really awesome about this. When we think of God, and when we think of, hey, if we remain in relationship with him, if we just stay in the space where he wants us to stay, and we actually start dreaming and thinking the dreams that actually God wants for us, that God actually wants for the community, that God actually wants for people's lives, where we can actually be catalysts in. If you remain in me and my words remain in you. He goes on, he says, this is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. And I love this. If you missed this, the point of catalyst has got nothing to do actually about you. Right? I hate to break it to you. But leadership and everything we've spoken about these past couple of weeks is actually all for the Father's glory. Everything that we want to do here is actually to bring honor and glory to who God is and what he has done for us. There's this verse that says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good deeds. Like each of our good deeds, but then praise and give all the glory back to God. That would be actually, hey, if we want to be great catalysts, that people say, wow, that is awesome what you guys are doing. Man, God is awesome. He's doing some incredible stuff through your community, through your life. That you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. Just remain in it. Remain where you should be. He says, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. And why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you? If you understand that God is for you, that God cares about you, that he already has cleaned you up, why wouldn't you want to follow his ways that are obviously going to be the best for your life? He says, hey, remain in my love and remain in his love. And I have told you this so that my joy may be in you. Wouldn't that be cool? If we remained in that joy, in that space where Jesus is actually in us, and the joy that we are reflecting is what Jesus is reflecting from us. And he says, and that your joy may be complete. That we can be content. That we can be just who we are. And he ends off then saying this. He says, my command is this: love each other as I've loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. This is like, if you want to know what leadership is all about, if you want to know what the point is about remaining in me and abiding in me, it's about actually loving each other. If you want to know the point about being a catalyst, it's actually about just looking after each other. If you want to know the point about Grace Gate, it's actually about loving each other and caring about each other, no matter who they are or where they're from or what they've done. And greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. To actually sacrifice. And actually say, you know what, this could be cool for me, but I want to be a catalyst, and I want to use this in order to rather help someone else. And then he ends in the last few verses, and this is what he says, and I love this part, because he says, you did not choose me. Love this. Just in case the disciples missed this, right? You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit. Fruit that will last. I mean, if we think about legacy, if it's in your mind still that maybe you think you're not a leader, I want you to know that Jesus says to his disciples, hey, you didn't choose me, I chose you. I've cleaned you up. You are perfectly positioned to be a catalyst right now. Not your cleaned up version of your life, because that will only bring you glory, but your messed up version. The version that isn't pretty, the version that's still struggling with sin and wrestling with that. That's the version God wants to use. That's the version that God wants to use to actually bear fruit, and fruit that will last. Fruit that will last. Fruit that will leave a legacy. Leaders that would be life-giving. And you know, this whole series about Catalyst, we've chatted about this, but I think this whole concept of remaining in God is central to actually being a catalyst. It's our foundation. If we understand that, hey, God accepts us, he loves us, and now he wants to use us from this space. I mean, imagine what we could do as a community, each one of us, living not from the lies and the false beliefs, but living from the truth, who God says we are, who Jesus says we are, and going out and influencing maybe our families, maybe our communities, and maybe even leaving a legacy. I think this stuff matters. I think everything we do here at this church matters. I think you taking ownership and responsibility of what God is speaking into your life matters, because all of this is around people. And people matter. And this is why we speak about this stuff. I'm going to invite the band to come up and they're going to end. But don't, as we end this series, don't be like the nation of Israel who just missed the war, even though it was right in front of them. Maybe they misunderstood who God is and what He wanted from them or for them. But can we be a community? Can we be a church that continues to say, hey, I know who I am. I know who God says I am. And I'm going to lead from that space. And if I get lost in the lies or the false beliefs, I'm going to come back to the starting point where He says, you are already clean. And now remain in me. Grow with me. Follow me step by step. That's what I want for your life. Because if you do that, naturally you're going to bear fruit. God, today, as we took some time to connect with you and to read your word, we hope that your word actually doesn't just sound good or challenge us, but that it actually makes us make decisions in life. Decisions that sometimes are hard and we need courage to do. But God, we pray that you'll give us the wisdom and the knowledge how to be better catalysts, how to just lean into you better and actually see you do something significant in our lives just through us saying, hey, we surrender. It's like Peter saying, hey, God, if that's the deal, I'm just going to surrender. I'm just going to say, wash all of me, just cover me and help me to make a difference. So we pray for things in this community that, we haven't seen or done yet, that you will use us, each one of us, to make a difference in those spaces, God. So today, the words that you're speaking to each one of us individually, may we just respond to them with a resounding yes, and hey, we're just surrendering and we're residing in you, is our prayer in Jesus' name.